The Carolina Panthers have one win through 9 games of the 2023 season and have looked ugly not just at times during Bryce Young's rookie year, but repeatedly. And whenever you have a rookie quarterback, you expect to go through growing pains and you expect there to be adversity, several times in fact. But the struggles the Panthers are going through are on another level, and they are entering a dangerous situation. This isn't your standard bad team because usually there's a light at the end of the tunnel. As a fan, you can usually say what we're going through stinks right now, but at least we will get a top 5 draft pick, and hopefully that player will start to turn our franchise around. But as we know, the Carolina Panthers do not have their 2024 first round pick, a pick that could completely turn this franchise's fortune around. And there's several layers as to why the Panthers are in a very dangerous situation. This is not a one-year turnaround, and it's going to be a multiple-year process. And in today's video, we're going to break down how they got here, what they can realistically do moving forward, and if and when they can get out of this. And there is a lot to dive into with this team, and I mean a lot. Now let's begin. And we are starting today's video by discussing a lot of what's wrong with the Panthers, and the short answer is pretty much everything offensively, but to go more in depth, here's what we mean. Bryce Young has taken the 5th most sacks in the NFL with 29, which obviously isn't good to begin with, but it's even more concerning when you realize Bryce missed a game, and not only did he miss a game back in week 3, but the Panthers have already had their bye week, which was back in week 7, and we bring the bye week part up because there's quarterbacks that have not had their bye yet that have been sacked significantly less than Bryce has, yet have thrown a lot more passes than Bryce has. Young currently ranks 20th in the NFL in passing attempts, and as we said, has taken the 5th most sacks in the league. And I know you may be thinking some of these sacks are on Bryce, and that is true, as younger quarterbacks tend to take sacks more than veteran quarterbacks, because they too have to adjust to the speed of the NFL level, and they have to realize just how much or how little time they have to throw the football. But believe it or not, out of the 38 qualified quarterbacks, Bryce actually ranks 17th in longest average time to throw. He gets the ball out quicker than you'd think despite being sacked as many times as he has, and his average time to throw is actually quicker than some notable quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and a player we will discuss later in the video, CJ Stroud. But the offensive line has not been good for Carolina even from a pressure standpoint, and right tackle Taylor Moton picked an unfortunate year to have the worst year of his career. He has been a good player for the Panthers since being drafted in the 2nd round back in 2017, and aside from his rookie year in which he played just 70 total snaps, he has given up the most pressures in his career in 2023, despite playing over 300 less snaps than any other year in his career. He's already given up 32 pressures on 430 pass blocking snaps, and his previous career high was 29 pressures allowed back in 2019, in which he logged 736 pass blocking snaps. And he's already at a career high in pressures allowed, and this video is being made in mid-November, and there's still 8 games left for the Panthers, so he's going to increase his career high in pressures allowed by a significant margin. And Moton is currently 4th in the NFL in pressures allowed behind Andre Dillard of the Titans, Orlando Brown Jr. of the Bengals, and Mike McGlinchey of the Broncos. But Moton isn't the only problem along the offensive line, and in fact, there's a lot of problems along the offensive line, and second-year tackle and 2022 first-round pick Ikem Ekwonu has allowed 5 sacks in 9 games compared to the 6 he allowed in 2022. He has 9 penalties on the year in 9 games, and Ikem has played in 26 career games in the past year and a half and has 22 career penalties. Ekwonu has also allowed 21 pressures in 9 games versus the 27 he allowed in all of 2022. 27 pressures over the course of a season is good, and especially for a rookie left tackle. But with a rookie quarterback this year and with a player who was naturally going to need a lot of help in Bryce Young, you would have liked to have seen Ikem take a step this year, and he hasn't. Granted, Ekwonu hasn't taken a huge step back, as in an Evan Neal type year where quite literally everything that can go wrong for Evan pretty much has, but I don't sit here with any sort of confidence moving forward that Ekwonu can be the left tackle of the future, and the 5 sacks he is credited with allowing are tied for 8th most among all NFL offensive linemen. The Panthers have a lot of problems in the trenches, and it's not like it gets better with the skill position players either. The Panthers rank 26th in passing yards on the year, and I don't want to delve too much into that ranking, but more so how the yards or percentage of yards are split amongst the team. They have 1,928 passing yards in the 9 games they've played, with 361 coming from Andy Dalton in the lone game he started back in Week 3. That is a cause for concern that Andy went out and slung the rock and threw for more yards, and by a significant margin than Bryce has in any game all year. But Adam Thielen has 652 of their 1,900 yards, which accumulates to 33.8% of the team's total amount of passing yards, or in Adam's case, receiving yards on the year. And I don't have a problem with getting your best player the football, but to give you an idea of how much they're getting Adam the football, guys, Justin Jefferson had 1,800 yards receiving last year, and he accumulated for 37.5% of the team's receiving yards in 2022. Tyreek Hill went for 1,700 last year and accumulated for 35.9% of the team's yards. The Panthers are force-feeding a 33-year-old Adam Thielen, close to the level the Vikings and Dolphins did during career years for both Jefferson and Hill. And of course, Justin would go on to win the Offensive Player of the Year award. And it's not like Adam is the player he was back in 2018, when he had 8 straight 100-yard games to start the year, and is getting open and making DBs miss play after play after play. He is getting open at times, yes, but it's due in large part to having to force feed him because nobody else can make a play or get open. During the team preview videos I titled the Panthers preview, the Carolina Panthers are a better team than you think, and some people have went back and commented this aged poorly and you don't know ball and comments similar to that, but the vision I had for this team and ultimately this receiving core was nowhere close to what it is. We are in mid-November and they have one player over 250 receiving yards. They legitimately do not have a second option. I thought a healthy DJ Chark could chip in for 40 or 45 catches and have 550 or 600 yards and maybe add 4 or 5 touchdowns over the course of a 17-game season. But in the 7 games he's played, he has 2 games above 40 yards, with one of those being an 86-yard game against the Seahawks in what was the Andy Dalton game. I was never the biggest Jonathan Mingo fan, but hell, as a rookie I thought he could haul in 45 passes for 500 yards and add 5 touchdowns. 45 catches in 17 games is not a lot, and it equates to less than 3 receptions per game. And we're over halfway through his rookie season, and he still does not have his first career touchdown. Admittedly, I didn't have high expectations for Hayden Hurst, as he's a 30-year-old veteran tight end, whose best year was a 571-yard, 6-touchdown season for the Falcons back in 2020, but again, I did expect more than 18 receptions in 9 games for a measly 184 receiving yards. And when you combine these offensive weapons with one of the worst offensive lines in the league, guys, are we really surprised Bryce Young is not having success as a rookie? Are we really surprised to see a rookie quarterback struggle in what is an absolutely awful situation? The answer should be no. A run game is a quarterback's best friend, and given the Panthers are 30th in offensive yards in 2023, well, it should not come as a surprise. They are bottom 5 in pretty much every rushing category too. They're 28th in rushing attempts, 27th in rushing yards, 31st in rushing touchdowns, and the only category they're not bottom 5 is yards per attempt, where they rank 25th. They signed Miles Sanders in free agency to a 4-year, $25.4 million deal after rushing for over 1,200 yards and 11 touchdowns in 2022 with the Eagles. He would go on to have 72 rushing yards in his Panthers debut, which isn't bad, and any team would take that. But in the 7 games he's played since, well, Miles has rushed for 152 yards on 53 attempts for an average of 2.87 yards per carry. He hasn't been much of a threat as a receiver either, as he has just 20 receptions for 118 receiving yards on the year. The Panthers have given their rookie quarterback, the guy they selected number 1 overall, next to no help. He can't even turn around and hand the ball off and hope for a gain of 7 yards to make life easier on second down for a chance to move the sticks and establish a rhythm offensively. And this goes back to the title of today's video of the Panthers are entering a dangerous situation. We are beginning to enter a time period during the Bryce Young timeline where I am concerned if we're too far past what we can reasonably do to help him out. And one of the problems among many for Carolina is this isn't an overnight fix. You don't just say, poof, let's fire Frank Reich and magically get better. I know there's been rumblings of Frank Reich getting fired due to David Tepper wanting results rather than what he's seen on the field, and I get it. Being 1-8 without your first round pick in the year you want that first round pick, the most out of any of the past 5 classes, absolutely stinks. Being ranked 29th in points per game offensively and 30th in points per game defensively stinks. But to go back to the Frank Reich situation, I don't think it's as simple as firing him and trying to bring in somebody like Bobby Slowick or Ben Johnson for the Lions, for example. And to be completely honest, those guys are going to be hot commodities this offseason, and I can imagine Carolina is going to be high on their list of places they want to go, unless they are absolutely enamored with Bryce Young over a guy like Caleb Williams or Drake May, which I don't know if they are not enamored with Bryce Young, that is. If Carolina were to fire Frank Reich and get another head coach, there's a very high chance they would be getting the second or third tier coaches from this cycle due to the grim outlook they have. And not only that, but you risk something else, and that's the timeline with a young quarterback and head coach not aligning. And what I mean by this is the new head coach didn't get to have a say in the quarterback of the future, and that's probably not a good thing for Bryce Young's sake. It could be, but we've seen it not be a good thing in several scenarios, and one I think about often is Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus inheriting Justin Fields in his second season and entering that draft. They too did not have a first round pick. Brian Daboll, the Giants head coach, also inherited Daniel Jones, and that's another rough situation at the moment. And rough is, well, not rough enough of a word to describe what the Giants are going through. A lot of the time, I try to come up with answers, but the only situation I can see that I think can amount to salvaging anything here in Carolina is to at minimum franchise tag Brian Burns and basically have a bidding war in who will give up the most draft capital. Burns being traded has been a topic discussion for well over a year now, and now that they don't have a first round pick and one they could trade for several first round picks, I think you have to auction off your best player and say, we know we're in a terrible situation, and let's acquire as many picks as we can. By no means am I in the Frank Reich is doing a good job boat, and I don't think there's many people that are, but the talent he has to work with, offensively speaking, is very little. Yes, they have the number 1 overall pick, but Bryce's game is predicated on timing and rhythm, and there hasn't been a lot of timing and rhythm in this offense. Granted, you could say that's on Frank Reich and the coaching, but there's been times where Bryce has flat out looked like a deer in headlights under pressure in 2023. This team has put up 25 or more points in one game this year, and it was the Andy Dalton game against the Seahawks. Bryce Young has yet to throw for 250 yards in an NFL game, and there's going to be 2 main questions for the Carolina Panthers this offseason. 1, does Frank keep his job? And the answer to that may be known before the end of the season. And 2, how do we bring in as much NFL talent to help our quarterback out before we completely ruin him? The Panthers are in a dangerous situation, and unlike a lot of other teams, I don't know what the next step for them is. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as only about 27% of people watching are subscribed, and it helps the channel tremendously. Until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.